Hi, welcome back to Central Line. We are continuing our special edition episodes recorded here at in San Diego at the first ever AAHA 2023. Very exciting. And our guest today is somebody I've been wishing that I could talk to for a long time, Dr. Martha Cline.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's really great to meet you in person. We've talked virtually several
Little
times.
squares.
Yes.
Little squares.
And if you have taken the nutrition certificate, the nutrition guidelines certificate through AAHA Learning, which if you haven't, you should definitely check it out. Dr. Cline was instrumental in making that happen. You were pretty much like, you saved the day with that certificate. So, and you also appear on video in the certificate.
Oh, yes.
You were a really good sport about that.
Yes. Well, I feel very invested in the guidelines, and I wanted it to be just a really wonderful program because I felt like the team, all of us on the team on the guidelines put so much effort into it. And so it's really nice to see the certificate be available as well and really help another source to put all that good information into the clinic.
Yeah, so that's true. I didn't mention that part, which is that you were you co-chair of the task force?
I was the chair.
You were the chair.
I was the chair.
Yes, you didn't have to co with anyone.
I know. I was like,
yes.
Are you sure you want this to be me? Okay.
Of the nutrition and weight management guidelines,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
so,
2021.
Yeah. So, and those guidelines are fantastic. So definitely check those out too. And I really like the calculators that we have online. Mm-hmm. So just a whole bunch of good resources about nutrition, because as we know, nutrition can be something that not everyone is like super excited about.
Yeah.
At least off the bat.
And I think a lot of veterinary professionals in all parts of the team can have some fatigue or some anxiety having nutrition conversations. And there are some really amazing communication techniques. And actually, it's really incredible to see some of the literature that's been coming out in the last few years. I think specifically Dr. Jason Koh was on our task force, and they are just like a publishing machine with really great nutrition techniques in terms of communication strategies. They're not the only ones by any means, but when I look at the literature that's come out just in the last few years, it's all really, really great resources. And a lot of those are built into the guidelines as well.
You know, I really noticed that especially starting with the nutrition guidelines, there's been a trend in AAHA guidelines, which partly is because of the team we have in place that really wants to stress that in the content we produce, but also the task forces that get together. People all over the spectrum of vet med are realizing the importance of the stuff that isn't just the hard science.
Yeah.
The communication and the interpersonal relationships and the team dynamics and empowerment of members of the veterinary team that all go into really making implementation of those recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the gaps, I think, when we sat down and talked for the nutrition assessment guidelines is we had wonderful guidelines from 2010 that a lot of that information is still relevant. We had really fabulous guidelines from 2014 on weight management. But both of those guidelines did not address some of those, I guess, softer things, like not the context, right? So we'll talk about like the scientific knowledge and the context behind making a recommendation, but how do you get there? How do you proceed into that? What are the perceptions and the purchasing decisions and of the client? And then how do we navigate that when having conversations about unconventional food or trying to share goals or having weight management conversations? And so there are techniques out there to address some of that can really, when we look at a lot of the pain points that veterinarians have, there are people we have evidence-based medicine now on communication techniques to work within that space.
Yeah, love that. I love seeing all that evidence-based research come out about things like communication.
Yeah.
It's making them seem less soft and more essential.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's really great because I didn't feel like I really appreciate the recognition in my time from starting veterinary school to now to, addressing the pain points of the veterinarian and the veterinary team and managing that fatigue and anxiety that comes with a lot of that. But then also reminding us, to be compassionate toward the client and where does the client come from? And I talked about today here at AAHA Con, don't forget about the client with the new puppy going into the pet store, standing there with 200 beautiful bags staring back at it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very difficult
That's hard
decision,
for me.
right? I'm so glad I don't have to make that decision. Like, I am so glad I don't have to do that. And I really think about how much time and effort some of these clients have invested in making these choices. And then they come into the vet clinic and now we're going to challenge that. That's a really difficult position to be in. And so knowing how to navigate that and to talk to the client about that is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I realized I forgot an essential thing, which is to ask you to introduce yourself. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So you're Martha Cline. You're a board-certified veterinary nutritionist. But what do you do? And what do you think is important for people to know about you?
Yeah. So I finished my residency in 2013. And right after I finished my residency, one of my main goals was to just get in the clinic and practice. Like, I love practicing. I love seeing patients. And so I moved from Tennessee to New Jersey and went to work full time at Red Bank Veterinary Hospitals. So primarily located in Tinton Falls, but I had coverage at Hillsborough, the Hillsborough location and the Mount Laurel location. In my 8.5 years full time, I also had a little bit of overlap with two other amazing nutritionists I learned so much from, Dr. Lisa Weeth and Dr. Marianne Murphy. But I was there, I think it was 2016 on. I think I was a solo up until December 2021. So I was full-time, just all nutrition all the time. In 2021, at the end of 2021, I had a really interesting opportunity come towards me, and I'm so happy I did that. It was really hard to think about. I know it's so hard to think about changing what you're doing, but I actually was so lucky. I got to join the team at Nestlé Purina. So I'm a veterinary communications manager now. So I get to take a lot of the stuff that I had full-time in the clinic and I get to implement it on a much bigger scale, which is very fun. And then the really other fun part is I still actually go to the clinic too. So I work part-time in the clinic and I still see nutrition patients depending on what my schedule of my full-time job is. So now I'm balancing that as well. But I still get to see patients, but on the other side of that, I get to do a lot of other things that I love, like communicate. I get to write, I get to edit, I get to educate internally, I get to educate externally. And so it's just been a really fulfilling change. And it's a really nice reminder that there are a lot of things that you can do as a veterinarian. So
absolutely. That's a lot of nutrition though. Like, that's a lot of nutrition. You're talking about veterinary nutrition a lot. And
yes,
so
all the time.
Really
so I guess it's good that I really like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you always love nutrition or did that come to you later?
That actually came, so I think back when I was in undergrad, I did not have an interest in nutrition beyond maybe what I was eating myself and what my family members did. I had some interesting, not necessarily personally, but within my family, some people who've made some very interesting diet choices for themselves in the past. And so I always had a little bit of interest in navigating that space a little bit. I came from two parents that were engineers. And so, and then I was always very much in the science space. And so that background made me, very much appreciate evidence and evidence-based medicine and nutrition and science in general. And so it made me question a lot of things. I wanted to go to veterinary school. I got into veterinary school and I literally did not even know that that a veterinary nutritionist existed. But in my first year of veterinary school, I applied for a student rep position, actually with Nestlé Purina, interestingly enough. And it really opened up my eyes to veterinary nutrition. And then I was very fortunate to be able to work with the nutrition service at the University of Tennessee between my first and second year. on the clinic, but also doing a research project for them. And really from there, the opportunities I had in my first year of vet school really started to influence where I wanted to go in terms of my path. And so I knew by the time I finished veterinary school that I wanted to pursue veterinary nutrition. And I was very much determined to do that. And here we are today. So it worked out. That's good.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. It's not like you came in as a nutrition nerd.
Yeah, not at all. I think
a lot of us just like run from nutrition.
Yeah, and that was something that I thought was really, I noticed that in veterinary school, that nutrition was something that even then gave people a lot of anxiety and they didn't want to have those conversations and they didn't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah, we don't want to do math.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, do the math. And then I'm like, there's really great online calculators. There's so many online calculators. You don't have to, just bookmark it and put it in and it'll do it for you. But I think I appreciated that. And again, I just had this really unique background where I wanted to, of having some weird nutrition stuff happen in my life in the past. And I wanted to and so part of that came from that, but then I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then I was able to find out how I could incorporate all of those things together.
It's very cool.
So, yeah,
we'll have to, that's another conversation for another time, but we'll have to talk more about the connection between veterinary nutrition and human nutrition. Like we could really dive deep in that.
Oh man.
Because that's a space I'm very interested in too, especially when it comes to how we think about obesity and how we have those conversations with pet owners.
Yes.
I do think we're like, we're a little behind the times on that.
Yeah, we definitely are. And when I was a resident, I was very fortunate to take some graduate level courses on main campus at University of Tennessee with the nutrition department, with people who are registered dietitians, those in public health, those in PhDs. So I was in class and I made some connections with people there. I also have some connections, just like friendly connections with registered dietitians. And the space they navigate is so difficult, right? Because there's so much social stigma and emotion related to it. And one of the most interesting things that I've seen come from looking at some of the way we communicate in veterinary medicine that really is something that people hadn't really thought of. But when we think about weight bias in human medicine, right? So this is where people are basically discriminated against because of their weight and they're being stereotyped. And this happens in exam rooms for people that are going to the doctor, and it really compromises care. Yeah. And so there have been some people that have looked at, or some researchers have looked at, does this exist in veterinary medicine? And there was an interesting study done out of University of Pennsylvania where they did find that there is some degree of weight bias that happens. So when there are veterinarians and veterinary students and they are confronted with an animal that is overweight, that they have more negative attitude towards the owner. And then when owners themselves are also overweight or obese and have an overweight or obese animal, there tends to be more blame put on that owner for that compared to if the owner was lean. And then some of the language that is used in veterinary medicine, like when we're talking about animals that have excess body weight, some of that language can be stigmatizing to the owner. And so it's that paper and the conversation around that is really important because of what exists around people and how stigmatizing it is. And, obviously we know that in dogs and in people, there are certain health consequences from having excess body weight. And that is science, but navigating the space in terms of communication and doing the best that we can to help people. And I actually feel like I've learned a lot from that human field in terms of even communicating with clients. And again, there is some literature about this, is when we're talking about pet weight and making recommendations, is we're focusing it in the context of the pet health, so that, like, for example, if you have an obese dog and it has lameness associated with it and it has an issue with mobility that's affecting its quality of life. So the conversation maybe not to have is be like, this dog weighs 90 pounds. Your dog really needs to weigh 60 pounds. We're going to come in. We're going to do this. Let's refocus that not on just what the weight is and the number on the scale is, but let's say, we have some really good evidence to show that even 5 to 10% weight loss can help improve mobility. So why don't we work towards, if you have a good nutrition history and do a nutritional assessment, we can make those recommendations, but not focusing it on your pet is obese and needs to lose 30 pounds, like your pet could probably benefit from a mobility standpoint, and I'm going to help you do that. And so there's just ways to reframe that conversation that makes it less stigmatizing to the owner and makes it less about just what that number on the scale is. And so looking at it in terms of how we can help with the quality of life of the pet, I think is important. So it's so complicated though. I feel like there's still so much. I mean, I sometimes can even be intimidated by those conversations because, and the last thing I ever want to do is come across as like judgmental or even stereotyping somebody. And, everybody has to work on that. Like, nobody is immune to having biases and things, but, it's an important conversation for us to start having. And yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And there's so much science now that they're starting to figure out. And I say science, making the little air quotes again. I do this a lot.
Yeah.
And when most people listen to the podcast, they don't watch it. And I'm like, they're not seeing this, but I'm making little air quotes because there's so much science about weight and obesity in humans that is actually based in very shaky data. And I think that's really important too, is that, as you say, some of it is science where we know that excess weight, especially after a certain point, is detrimental to the health of both animals and humans. And also, humans aren't dogs, dogs aren't humans. And for humans, the genetic component, the social component of weight is so important to take into consideration.
And there are healthy people at different sizes, right? And so, and I don't want to ever speak out of turn because I am not a registered dietitian or a human doctor, but the things from applying some of those communication techniques into veterinary medicine, I can feed my pets a complete and balanced diet every day.
Yeah.
When we're talking about weight management, that is going to be very different than when we talk about diet culture for people, which is very complicated.
So complicated. There's nothing more complicated.
I'm really fortunate that I have the ability to utilize different diets and therapeutic nutrition to make sure that if I'm dropping calories, I'm not restricting nutrients, I'm not restricting protein. I have ways that I can promote satiety. I have different behavioral techniques and things that we can do. And we just have so much more control. So sometimes I feel like my job is easier than it is going to be on the human front because they have to deal with emotion and society and perception. And that's really hard.
It's so complicated. And even just listening to you talk, I'm just thinking when it comes to the human-animal bond, the food is such an important part of that. And when they hear restricting calories or changing diet, they hear you're changing my relationship with my pet. And that doesn't have to be the case.
Right.
But that's the gut reaction. Even for me, it's my cat should probably be on a food trial, to be honest, because he's got chronic ear stuff. But I don't want to take away his chew. You know what I mean? It's just so emotional.
Not even with weight management. It's anytime you're making a change that not only involves a diet change, but a behavioral change.
Yes.
It's something that you have to navigate. And so asking the right questions in terms of making sure we're assessing what the owner's goals are, what the reasons why maybe they purchase a certain pet food. Are there different parts of the daily routine when it comes to feeding that are really important for that human-animal bond, like the churro that you're talking about, or the bone that they give. They have to give this treat when they I want to preserve some of that. I want to preserve some of that, but maybe I want to fit it into. So I don't ever want to be the person that comes in and just be like, I'm taking all of this away from you. Yeah. And you can only feed
you could just forget about
one cup of food twice a day, and that's it, and no treats. And you have to take your dog on a walk for 3 miles every day. Yeah. So we have the ability to think about that in a much different way than, and we can have a lot more control over it. So
this AAHA podcast is brought to you by CareCredit.
CareCredit understands that all veterinary teams are busier than ever. To help patients get the care they need, the CareCredit Health and Pet Care Credit Card allows clients to access a budget-friendly financing experience anytime, from anywhere on their own smart device. They can learn, see if they pre-qualify, apply, and even pay if approved, all on that smart device. With just a tap, they have a friendly, contactless way to pay over time for the services and treatments their pet needs, whether it be a general, referring, or specialty hospital, as long as they accept the CareCredit credit card. Absolutely. Well, that's fascinating. And I definitely want to talk to you more about that at some point.
Yes, it would be really fun to do it with a registered dietitian,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Like we should have a panel talk about that. Okay, so note to self.
More like One Health kind of thing too. And also the opportunity for just learning from each other.
Yeah.
So,
because it is public health. Like
it's public health.
All of this is public health. And it's hard to think of something that's more closely entwined with the human-animal bond than food. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's a wonderful tangent that we went on that I didn't know we were going to talk about. And I love it so much. So many seeds have been planted.
It's something I think about it all the time. I know I have like so much to learn about it. So
same. Okay. So, without getting too deeply into specifics, I'm curious to know, the theme of our conference this year is Level Up. And I'm curious to know what leveling up, whether it's in vet med in general or in veterinary nutrition, looks like to you.
I feel like this is such an obvious answer, like when I'm going to say it, but something that I found, especially in the last couple of years, as I've switched jobs and changed my position and what I do on a daily basis, is looking for where my knowledge gaps are and trying to fill those knowledge gaps. And this is totally one of those things, like sometimes I realize, I didn't know what I didn't know. I love that phrase. Like people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so you can speak really confidently about something and then you find out it's more nuanced than that. And I kind of like almost love when that happens to me a little bit and I get challenged and get to learn something new. And especially as moving, one of the interesting things in navigating a different sector of veterinary medicine, so going from private practice to nutrition, is just like being able to learn so much more about a space that I wouldn't have been able to learn about if I had not decided to take that opportunity up on myself. So I think leveling up for me personally is always that pursuit of just learning. And, I think, so that's like from a professional standpoint, and having the opportunity to do things that I wouldn't have had to do in the clinic full time, even though that was a fulfilling thing as well for me. Personally, like outside of that, I'm really trying to become a better runner.
So this is the third space question, right?
Yeah, okay.
Like, I want to know more about that. So I was going to ask you what your third space is, where you don't have to be Dr. Cline, you don't have to be a wife, you don't have to have responsibilities where you're like obligated to someone else. You can just focus on something that's important to you.
Yeah, so I was not a runner until, if
you run, you're a runner.
Okay, if I like go outside and I ran for a little bit, I guess I could qualify as a runner. So let's put a real low bar on here. But when I was an intern, I met one of my like very close friends when I was an intern, and she was a runner. And I ran my first 5K when I was an intern, and I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then I went into my residency, and that's when I really found the running in terms of being in a space where I could put my head somewhere else. And I know it does not work for everybody. Like I have friends and they're like, yeah, that sounds like a miserable time.
Like why would you make yourself miserable?
Yeah, like why would you do that? But it's something that really worked for me. But it was hard. Like I've never been the kind of runner where I could just really get up every single morning. And I know those people and they're amazing who could run like 3 miles every day before they go to work. And so that was something I like really struggled with. And so I was like very recreational with it. And I also probably did what you're not supposed to do, which is weekend warrior it and then go like and do a half marathon.
Right.
Yeah. Not recommending to do that. No. Bad idea. Really bad idea. So one of the things in the last couple of years, it kind of started in the pandemic, but when the pandemic started, but I really wasn't able to focus on it so much. But I've I've been able in the last 2 years to like significantly drop my times.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a much faster runner. I feel a lot better. And part of that too is in my other like third space is I actually found a gym that works for me. Believe me, I have paid a lot of money for different gyms that
You're
did
not alone there.
pan out, right? Like there's a lot of people being like, yeah, I know about that.
Yeah.
But one of my friends who's a veterinarian invited me to come to this gym with her. And I found it to be a really positive place with like really positive classes and coaches. And I'm also going to say I found a gym that did not give out really horrible nutrition information.
Ooh.
I know.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Like, how frustrating that must be for you.
Yes, because I have I am not a registered dietitian.
Yeah.
I am not a human nutritionist.
But the science
I
of
want to stay
nutrition
in my
doesn't
lane,
lie.
but I definitely know when people are saying stuff that is not right.
Yeah.
So that was actually like being able to find
Oh, I so feel that.
a space where I felt there was a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of misinformation there. And so I found a space where I go. So I also am a better runner now because I cross-train in the gym.
Yeah.
Who knew? All of these very basic
If only
things.
someone had told us.
Wow. If somebody told me I needed to cross-train to be a better runner. But that's just been a really positive thing. And it's something that I never thought that I would get there or be the type of person that would enjoy doing that. But it took a really long time, and it was definitely something I could have easily have given up on. But I think it's just, again, having the opportunity and then also finding just a supportive group of people. And so what I do for that is definitely not for everybody. And, even my husband finds different ways. Like, he does not want to go to the gym with me or run with me, but he loves his bike.
Yeah. I mean, it's so personal. And like, I love that you kept it up until you found something that worked for you. And like, there's a season for everything, right?
Yeah.
I used to be
absolutely
like sign up for all the races, and I was never fast, but like I was getting faster, and like I cared about that, and I wanted to go do speed work and stuff. And my body just like, I was cross-trained, but my body just, I had some medical problems, and I lost it for a little while. And now I'm just happy to be out there.
Yeah.
And it helps to live in Colorado now, where like being outside is just great.
Right. Like, well, can you live in Colorado and not like that?
I feel like they take your Colorado card away.
Yeah.
Like if you don't get to, I guess the Colorado card is something else. But like, I have a bike rack now and stuff, I do all the things. But like, I want to be able to just be outside and be moving. But there's something about running that for me, you just can't replicate. Something about just like, it's you and the road and your shoes and your breath. And I solve a lot of problems running,
Yeah. I think the other thing with the running is I've found the people that I like to be with when I run.
Yes.
And shout out to my friend Carrie, who is the one that I met my internship. And if all goes well, we will both be running the New York City Marathon next year, because they have a program where you can like run 9 races and volunteer for one. And so my friend Carrie and my friend Catherine, who are also veterinarians, and I love them very much, we're all volunteering at the marathon this year. And so
that's gonna be fun too.
Oh yeah. And I just love the energy of these big races. And I just really feed off of the positivity of all of it. And so so it's not only the running, it's also the encouragement that you get when you're doing it. It's really nice.
Totally.
So and having people that you can, celebrate with and also build up and do it with. Yeah.
Yeah. For anybody listening who has not stood at the finish line or like down that home stretch of a marathon, I would highly recommend it. Like, even if you never have run a step and don't plan to run a step in your life, like, you learn something about the human condition watching people finish a marathon, especially like the mid to back of the pack people.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like, it's no big deal to me to watch like super fit people like race across the finish line really fast. Like, great for them. Kudos to them. But there's something about the people who have been out there for like 6 hours, 6.5 hours. And New York City has people finishing like at night.
Yes.
Like, they've been running literally all day.
I love cheering at races, like, and hanging out, like after I finish, like going back and hanging out and cheering people on.
It's so inspiring.
It's really, really fun. So I love it.
Well, that's awesome. Have so much fun volunteering.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. And I'll be cheering for you next year when you're out there.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. So
yeah, that's great. Okay, so last question.
okay.
So this is going to come out after Tech Month or Tech Week, National Veterinary Technician Week. It's going to come out after that, but technicians should be celebrated all year. Mm-hmm. But since we're coming up on Vet Tech Week and the release of the first AAHA technician utilization guidelines are coming out.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so excited.
Yeah, so they'll be out in Trends Magazine in October.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. That's amazing.
So by the time this airs, they'll be out already. So I hope everyone's checked them out, but if not, we'll have a link. Mm-hmm. And I'm collecting stories for our technician friends because credentialed technicians they are, and everybody calls them the unsung heroes or like the backbone, all true, like all the cliches, they're so true. I don't know what I would do without our technicians. And I was wondering if you wanted to give a shout out to either veterinary technicians in general or to one specific credentialed technician who may have, saved your butt or something, because I can think of many that have saved mine.
Yeah. So I was an intern once a long time ago, and I think
God love you.
Pretty much anybody who's done a small animal or large animal internship, the overnight technicians absolutely save us. Yeah. Like they save us. So I was so lucky during my internship to work with two really amazing technicians, Dorina and Joanna, and both of them multiple times saved me. Not only saved the animal, but there are some really difficult client interactions that sometimes happen at night. And I had a really one that was making me very uncomfortable and scared, and having one of my technicians be like, I got you. Like, I'm going to come and I'm going to stand outside this door and I'm going to listen and I'm going to come and rescue you if you need help, because that was a rough one. And it was something that you learn a lot when you're an intern, and you learn a lot when you're out of vet school in general. But I felt so much better knowing that she was literally standing on the other side of the door with me, and to help me, protect me if I needed protection from this very irate client. So,
oh, no.
And then the other technician that is the nutrition technician at the University of Tennessee, Ashley Cox. She's married now, so hers has a different last name, Ashley Self. Sorry, I always remember her by her name from before, but Ashley,
she'll know who she is.
She knows who she is. So, but I met her during my residency before she ever became a VTS in nutrition. She actually came in my residency to just spend a little bit of time with us, and we quickly realized how skilled she was and how much of an asset she was. And, it's been really amazing to watch her become actually a really important technician in the veterinary nutrition space in terms of the leadership opportunities she's taken. And I'm actually really not surprised by any of it, to be honest. But she's great. I mean, she's really good. She's so good. I wish I could have stolen her for taking her to New Jersey with me, but I know she would have never have moved there. But she's just a real talent, and I know the people at Tennessee are so lucky to have her. And she's amazing because she's also teaching people now too, and teaching other people to be in the nutrition space. And so that knowledge that she has been available to lots of people now. So anyways,
I love all of that. And I also love it when technicians who are really amazing at what they do go out and show other technicians that they
she's
can
become
be that
like
way.
Yeah, she's definitely become a leader in her field now.
I love that.
So it's really great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I met her on day one coming to Tennessee.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And, some of that was a while ago, right? So you remember very clearly like those situations, and what you just said when you were like, she stood outside the door and she said, I got you, like I'll rescue you if you need it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that encompasses so much of what what technicians do for us is just like, they don't get the credit, they don't get the kudos, but they are there and they're like the hands that are just like waiting to catch us when something happens. And like, thank goodness for them. So
yeah, absolutely.
It was a good story.
Yes. I bet, I don't know if I wonder how many times she stood out the door from an intern, but I will never forget it. Like, I needed that.
She probably went home and was like, I had to stand outside the door.
I got to stand outside this door for this like intern who's been here for 2 months. And that was in 2010 and I still think about it now. I needed that. So
Fabulous. Well, Dr. Martha Cline, thank you so much for coming by.
This was really fun.
Our studio here in San Diego. I kind of wish we could just stay here because it's so nice to have a studio.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And San Diego is beautiful. I don't know if the space is beautiful, but yes.
I mean, this room exactly is not that beautiful, but like this setting outside is incredible. And so I appreciate you taking time to come in here and chat.
This was very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of ideas for follow-ups now.
Yes, I love it.
So we'll put some links in the show notes for some of the things that we talked about today. And is there anything else that you would like people to know before we sign off? Places they can reach you, resources they should know about, or like a mic drop about veterinary nutrition that you want people to know?
Veterinary nutrition is an amazing job. And it is so diverse too, what you can do as a nutritionist. And I think about how much knowledge and time the nutrition college and my colleagues in the nutrition college it's incredible. And nutrition is such an evolving field. And there are things that I said 5 years ago that I don't say anymore. I changed, because we are learning all this really cool new stuff. And so I just want people to know how cool nutrition is, like how I think it is. So that's it.
Love it. And Purina has a ton of resources about that. So just that
Purina
you can just use.
Institute Center Square and the Purina Institute website in general is a really fabulous resource. It's product agnostic, so it just really focuses on the science and the research and development, and then they have a really great resource, Center Square, and Center Square has tools for the veterinary team. It also has tools for clients. It also is translated in 8 different languages, so it really helps with that language barrier that sometimes people experience. So there's just really, really great information, and I love that resource. It's so great. It's a fantastic resource.
Very cool. We'll drop that link in the show notes also.
Perfect. Thank you.
And if you want specific links to Purina Institute resources, they are integrated. Many of them are integrated into the nutrition certificate.
They are.
So you'll find that on AAHA Learning.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Martha. And this was super fun.
This was super fun.
Thanks to all of you for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time on Central Line.